the biggest advantage that as a student can take is to kind of leverage that student, identity to reach out for help and, leverage that to kind of volunteer and, create fun stuff. Living in South Korea, I realized there are many more paths than just consulting, like startup, like media, contents, global business. I realized that with the background living overseas and, your ability to speak English, they bring so much more value than just choosing one path.
Maybe a bit of context in terms of why I'm excited to speak with you is Hannah had connected us. And in terms of building Cambridge, there are a lot of people that have recommendations on how I should build this out and feedback on what direction I should take it. And I find that helpful. But what I find most helpful is finding people who have already built communities themselves or some sort of ecosystem. And you've done that at the University of Toronto. So maybe as a jumping off point, and I'll ask you some more detailed questions about your background. But in terms of like who you are, what you do right now, could you just share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the invitation, and just feel free to interrupt me if you can't hear anything.
Great.
So my name is Jamie. I'm a senior at the University of Toronto, specializing in management, and have been working in the medical AI industry since last year, which now I shift to a part-time role to kind of study and work at the same time. For the past 10 years journey studying abroad, I worked across different countries, industries, and stages of the company. Also volunteering in both Korean and non-Korean associations, starting a lot of different projects, hosting events, always trying to do something fun until now. So thanks for the invitation, and I hope to share some of the cool stories here.
And University of Toronto, you're not from Canada originally, right? You're born and raised in Korea?
That's correct.
Okay. And in terms of your work situation right now, I don't know if I understood this, but so you're working part-time while also doing school part-time?
No, I'm actually a full-time student,
Okay.
taking 6 major courses per each semester.
Nice.
Because I think I didn't study too hard in my early days, so now I have to pay back for that. So I'm doing that like simultaneously. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about I think what had stood out to me is maybe it was in 2024 or 2023, you had basically hosted like an in-person kind of conference or event for like primarily international Korean students in Canada and maybe the States.
Right.
Can you share a little bit of the backstory of what that was and why it came to be?
I see. So it happened in the summer. It was called a Project Abroad. I just, came up with the name because I wanted to kind of collect a lot of, international students and, who has a Korean background here in the Korea. So I think there were about 3 main reasons why I tried to launch this event and, kick off this project. So basically the first one was I have been living in Korea for about a year because I had a gap year finishing my 3rd year. And imagining myself going back to, university, I just kind of wanted to do something fun before, I don't have any time. And I think the biggest advantage that as a student can take is to kind of leverage that student, identity to reach out for help and, leverage that to kind of volunteer and, create fun stuff. So before I run out of time, I wanted to just do cool stuff.
Yeah.
So that was like my major reason. So when I think about, okay, I only have 2 months and it's quite short time to, launch a new community or start, making mobile application. So what am I good at? And then I think it was kind of hosting events because I served as a president of the Korean Commerce Committee back in university. Also served as like a president at the like entrepreneurship committee, which is dedicated to healthcare in South Korea. So looking back for the past like 12 to 24 months, I was sort of involved in more than like 20 big or small scale events. So that's something that I wanted to bring. So I asked like, few of my friends that I always sort of reach out when I try to do something cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's very great in the sense that when you have an idea and then when you just want to kick it off by yourself, it's hard to judge whether this is a great idea or a bad idea because it's yours and you kind of fall in love with that.
Right.
So when I ask my friends like, okay, this is something I want to do, and then like, what do you think? Do you think this can be, success, or are you interested in? And then like just by listening to their feedback and their interest, I sort of had like a confidence that, okay, this is gonna be a thing. So I think that was a big reason why I started this. And so the behind is that I spent about 6 to 7 years living abroad.
Really?
Yeah. So back in 2014, I went to Vancouver to start from grade 9. So I finished 4 years there, and I moved to Toronto. So I do have like a gap year because of like military service and stuff like that. But I did study there for about 7 years. And back in Korea, I was part of, the core startup ecosystem filled in with like entrepreneurs and, young student bodies who are dedicated to it. So I did watch a lot of fun stuff. But, comparing those two ecosystems, the group of people I met and myself, the community I was in back in Canada, and the group of people I met while I was in Korea during a gap year was very different, not just by, in a geographic way, but it's that, I think when we study abroad, and when we are in there, we sort of imagine, seeing a bigger picture of the world, having, higher, goal and dreams. But I don't know if it's just me, but just looking at the people, like including myself, we often get struck by just like tight, exams and, same pattern of lives, like going to library, meeting the same people. And oftentimes, a lot of international students choose to go back to South Korea, and then I would say at least like 60 to 70% pursue a career in like consulting industry. So not that I disrespect, or I mean it's a great path and it's very competitive, but oftentimes I saw many people just don't know what to do, and it's that their alumni have a lot of experience in consulting industry, and they do value whether you're good at English or not. So it's sort of a easy path to choose. That's what I thought back then. But living in South Korea, I realized there are many more paths than just consulting, like startup, like media, contents, global business. I realized that with the background living overseas and your ability to speak English, they bring so much more value than just choosing one path that a lot of people already took a chance on. So I wanted to sort of host an event where we can actually focus on the global aspect with more, career options, so that we can kind of inspire a lot of young, not industry professionals yet, but young students who have international background who are willing to come to Korea and work, so that this can be, foundation of like sort of a Korean future that they can kind of bridge the gap between, what we have in Korea, bring this to, overseas, sell it there, make it more scalable. So I wanted to host an event to sort of reach out to a lot of industry professionals who have a variety of experiences, so that they can share to, attendees, so that we can kind of dream of, okay, us consulting is not the only area, then there are a lot of many more paths that we can choose, that we can consider of. So I wanted to sort of bring those people more options in terms of job paths, in terms of what they want to do after graduation. So I think that was a second idea. The last but not least was that I just wanted to be connected to a lot of young and brilliant mindsets, because I was very fortunate to meet a lot of great people around myself at the University of Toronto, so we can sort of inspire each other. So we just first met in the association, like, drinking and just doing fun stuff, like just getting, low marks. But later on, they all, work hard toward their, studies and careers. Now they all have experience working in great companies as an intern. So we can sort of share these ideas, experiences, help each other to a better place. And I was very fortunate, but there are some students who have better talents than I do, but just unlucky that they were not enough in a great spot to meet those people. So there are always the people who sort of work hard and have values to share so that we can inspire each other all around the world. So what if we can host an event that we can sort of collect everyone at one spot? So although it doesn't turn out like right after, but this connection is sort of go forever. I really believe the power of unexpected connections. So those ideas were sort of gradually combined so that I just wanted to host the event. Like, okay, let's just do it before we go back to school. Let's just hope to invite at least like 5 speakers with an attendee of like 60 to 80, which actually turns out to have 5 speakers and over 100 attendees from 7 countries and 37 universities.
Wow.
So it was quite success because a lot of people there were actually, president or, directors of, certain Korean regional level of associations, and they know how difficult it is to launch an event like this in person.
Yep.
In August when everyone's so busy.
Yeah.
It was actually not even free event. So there was sort of quite interesting, like how do you reach out to speakers, how do you actually host an event like this? So I think there were many opportunities for us to share our ideas. So looking back, I think it was a great success because we actually prepared that within just 6 weeks of time frame. Although we're not exactly sure about what to do after that in terms of just aligning with our original idea and concept, but that's just briefly like what it does and how it happened.
When Hannah Hyobin, she introduced the two of us, I didn't realize that you had also spent time like kind of growing up in Canada as well. We jumped on a call and I was curious about the event that you hosted. But I have many more questions about the logistics and the developments around that event and kind of what made it successful, but also in terms of your own background. So at what age did you move to Canada?
I think it was 15.
15?
So I started from grade 9.
Grade 9,
Yes.
so for high school.
Yeah. Secondary, like it's quite different system with US, but like area, yeah.
Got it. And was that always a goal or aspiration to go abroad? Or, I when I had the conversation with Hannah, I didn't realize how common it was or how much of a thing it was to kind of like send kids abroad just for a brief period of time and then to come back.
Right.
And I meet a lot of people like that now. So what was you and your family's mindset about you going abroad?
It's quite a funny story, but first of all, I never dreamed of studying abroad, or I don't even have any friends or relatives who actually were studying abroad. So it was quite a wow thing, not for just my family, but for people around me. Like, wait, what? Like, are you what? So just going back, so Korea, we do have an interesting like educational system that there are just like a regular high schools, and there's like prestigious high school which is dedicated to one subject area, like English dedicated, like science dedicated. And it's not just a stereotype, it was actually the fact that those people who actually pursue in that high school have higher chances to get into better universities. So which means you do have to start studying hard from middle school to get to a better high school. And there was like one high school that I wanted to really go, and I was just a regular kid with great marks. And there was like one exam in grade 8 that we tested on 8 subjects, which I did really well. I only got like 1 question wrong, so I ranked like top 2 out of the entire 550 students in our class.
Wow.
But the thing is, I didn't actually study hard that much for that exam.
You're a genius.
That's what I thought. Wait, maybe I'm a genius. But I was actually stupid in the sense that I didn't study harder to maintain the marks, which made it, which took my luck away for the next exam that dropped repeatedly a lot from a single digit rank to 3 digits. So it it was just one exam, but still took many chances away from me to get to that high school. And I just realized this as like a failure. I didn't really want to, do anything or work harder to get to, other options. I just was like, okay, I failed. So that's like one part. And then the other part is that I'm a huge baseball fan. And back in 2013, there was like a Korean baseball player named Hyunjin Ryu who was drafted by LA Dodgers as a starting pitcher. And that's when I started to watch like bigger markets. So I just watched like, Korean baseball from TV. And then now I see, much more, bigger teams with better market, higher salary and the complex industry of sports and, jobs and professionals behind the scenes. And that just opened my eyes that, okay, I don't know what I want to do, but I just want to sort of work in the bigger market. So those two were sort of happened at the same time, which was sort of mixed. And then I just told my mom or dad, like one day, like, I want to study abroad. Like it just came out. I don't know why exactly. Like it just happened.
Did you have friends in Korea that were doing anything similar or not?
No,
really?
not at all. Like not around me. Like so it was quite interesting. Like I did watch like High School Musical a lot.
Sure.
I did, but everyone did. But I don't know why exactly, but I think those two were sort of combined in those years and just wanted to sort of leap away from what I have been part of for many years, just studying and, thinking about like high school and just thinking as like a failure just by one exam. So I think that's what it happened. And I just said it without any plans or exact like goals. But I think my dad was sort of interested in that. Because I think he, as a like teenager, he one day wanted to just sort of study abroad, but he just could not. So I guess maybe he wanted to provide me the opportunity to study abroad. So just after like 6 months, when I said this, I was in Canada. That's how I got there and start, living there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so did you, because I mean, you mentioned that you were interested in baseball and LA Dodgers and all that stuff, right? I would imagine that the number one choice would be to be in the States, but you ended up in Vancouver. Is it Vancouver?
Yeah, that's correct.
And how did that happen? Like, was there some sort of formal program that you went to in order to get placed or?
Well, so although, baseball and LA Dodgers inspired me to, study abroad, I didn't exactly, have plans, I was not like, okay, I have to go to LA.
Sure.
So I just said I want to go study abroad, and all those like paperwork and research was done by my parents. Like, it's actually funny that, studying abroad is like a huge change, but I didn't really have my inputs in that. I didn't really mean to, so I just sort of relied on my parents. And I think my parents have those standards that we're not just going to send you, we have to like sort of go together. And I think US, they have like a different visa system, so that unless I go to like a school with like a dormitory, it's very difficult for my family to move together. So I think that's why we turned to the other country, which is Canada.
Wait, so your whole family went to Canada?
My dad stayed in Korea because he does have to work.
Yeah.
But my younger brother and my mom all moved together.
So you made the recommendation, hey, maybe I want to go out of state.
Said it, like,
and your whole
plans,
and a vast majority of your family ended up moving with you.
I don't think I was even that serious, by the way. Like, so my younger brother is just grade 3. And then my mom was like 45 years old. And then we just happened to move overseas, and that's very crazy. Yeah.
Wow. And your family now, are they all back in Seoul, or are some of them still in Canada?
Oh, yeah. So we had a lot of like moves, but now my brother came to University of Toronto as a first year.
Oh, nice.
And my mother is back to Korea living with my dad.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, a huge change.
And in terms of what the expectations were like before you had moved to Canada and what that experience was like, even like psychologically or culturally, in terms of how that experience was, would you summarize it as like a good experience, a hard experience? I guess, what were the things that stood out when you revisit the first like couple of years in Canada?
So the first couple of years, I would say it was very difficult, challenging, not great, and sad. So,
Oh man.
although I said I wanted to study abroad, as I mentioned, I didn't really have exact plans, goals, or even put some effort like learning English in advance. So when I got there, I just didn't know what to do. I was like, wait, what? Like, I'm here now? Like, how? Why? Did I say it? Did I really say it? At the same time, there was like a teacher strike happening even before I went there. So usually before going into long summer vacation, we do sign up for the courses like timetable and finish the final exam. But that year there was like a teacher strike happening during that time, so that it was sort of chaos, that they were not even able to go through the final exams. They were not even able to sign up for the courses. So when the school starts, which actually didn't start in the first day as planned, so I went there to study,
Yeah.
but school's just not open yet.
Yeah.
And I don't even know when. So all I could was just to search, websites or, read like news media. But I don't know anyone there. So I could only rely on the sources.
Right.
And now it should be starting the school, but it just doesn't open yet. So I was like so confused. Like, I'm here to study, but school's not open. And I don't even know when it will open. And it actually took 3 or 4 more weeks for school to open.
Wow.
So when I went there, it was crazy because we got the timetable, which should be consisted of like 8 courses, but I only had like 5 of them. And I had like 2 mathematics. So 3 empty slots. But it was not just my problem. That happened to everyone because they couldn't just work through it, right? So, we usually make friends in the first 2 classes, and then it's different from like Korea that we actually need to go to classes. It's actually different in Korea that we stay in the class when teachers come to class based on the timetable.
Yep.
So when there's no class, which is crazy, I just didn't know what to do. Like, should I go back to home or should I just stay alone? Like, I don't know anyone. So I think it was very rough start for me. And then I lived in Vancouver, very the core area of Vancouver was like a high educational system, which also means there were a lot of Asians there. So I think I imagine like High School Musical was like, Western vibe.
Yeah.
But the school I went to was like 60 to 70% were all Asians.
Wow.
So I think it was quite different from what I expected. There are also like pros in the sense that I could be like a little confident in speaking language, although it wasn't great because there were people worse than I did. But that was pretty much it. So I think the first 2 years very rough for me, that I sort of, like, did I really make a great choice? Like, should I go back? But, ended up just staying.
And you had mentioned the high percentage of, I guess, like Asian Canadians there. Right. Were there other international Koreans that you had met while you were there as well, that you could like speak Korean to or feel more comfortable around?
I think there was just like 1 or 2 per class, like for each grade. But I think I watched like Hannah's like episode that she kind of brainwashed that she wanted to stay away from like speaking Koreans. And I think that's sort of what I did too. Like, I mean, our school doesn't have like, they don't have many Koreans, but still like I'm here to sort of like, study English, learn their cultures. So I sort of like didn't be that close with like Korean friends, like, I guess.
In terms of the community building that you had done at the University of Toronto, I think you had even said like you believed in, maybe it was like serendipity of connections and the power of just connecting with people, right? When I talk to people in Korea, like Koreans that were born and raised here, and some of whom speak English, a lot of them find it maybe a little bit uncomfortable or awkward just to like strike up conversations with random people or to even like do networking in, I would say, like a more Western way. In terms of your community building and seeing the value in some of that, do you think that was heavily influenced by being in Canada those years? Or is that something you had even before that, of like meeting new people and the power of building community?
I can't come up with the exact answer, but I think the core reason why I like to build a community is something I want to pay back to the people. So when I first went to university, I had like a stereotypes that like the Korean club is sort of scary. That they drink a lot, like party a lot. So
Huh.
I try my best to stay away from those associations. So although I was in a group chat like for the first year like Korean students, I like never went to first two events or even like texted in a group chat because I just didn't want to be part of it. But the time flies, like 6 weeks before the school starts, where we should be signing up for the courses. But I just didn't know what to do. It was so complex. It was so different with high school. So I just needed someone to help, me through the process. And there was like a Korean commerce committee with a lot of students who have experience studying, economics and business in their first year. And they were there to sort of spend their time and effort to really guide me through the entire process, like how we should be paying tuition, who are, recommended like professors, how can we study, better in those courses, what are the recommended like timetable, like electric all those things. They really put a lot of effort to us. So those stereotypes were kind of, gone away. And not only I wanted to be, part of this organization, I sort of wanted to, one day I want to be that upper year mentor to bring back this help and support to the students like me. So I think that realization in my first year in tough times in a new city was really, valued highly in my like deep mindset. That whenever I want to, sort of start building a new community, that is like my number one like core value I would like to prioritize on.
That makes sense. Interesting. In terms of even why University of Toronto, why you decided to go there, and what your thought process was during the college application process, did you apply to Canadian schools, U.S. schools, and even schools back in Korea? Or tell me a little bit about that.
I think I applied to schools in US and Canada because I was living in an English-speaking country. It was just difficult at that time to just apply for Korean universities. It was just different system. So those two were my like prior options. At first, as I lived the first 4 years in Canada, I just wanted to leave away from this country. I just didn't really like it at the time. So I'm a person who always tried to find like new stuff. So maybe 4 years I thought was enough. So I only applied to like, I think just one or two schools in that country, U of T and like UBC in the same city. And then like applied to like a bunch of like universities in the States because back then I wanted to sort of go into sports industry still and apply to a lot of like kinesiology program. And then I think US there are a lot of great schools who actually excel in that like area. So like Texas, Ohio, or New York, like Michigan, those areas were like my target schools. And I actually got in those. And then my last moment, my choice was like sports management and kinesiology program in the States or business program at University of Toronto. So back then, I was like more of a mathematics and science kid. Like never even studied like economics back in high school. So I wasn't thinking to apply to business program. But then I look into myself like, okay, I'm getting great marks in those subjects, but I don't really like it. And I heard that college system is really difficult and tough compared to high schools here. So I wasn't really confident in doing those areas. So what if I just do new thing that I have never done yet? Because I have done things before and I know that I don't like it. So maybe why don't I just give a shot to new stuff? And U of T was the only school that applied like for a business program. So
Wow.
Okay. I mean, I guess this is the only choice. Kinesiology, although I liked it, I just thought that I'm still young, not exactly sure about what to do. So I just thought the business has more opportunities in terms of like what to do after, finishing my university. So I think that's how I moved to Toronto for university, for the program.
And you had mentioned like when you first moved to Canada, at least the first year was a little bit tricky, right? It was hard to adjust. and you primarily only applied to colleges in Canada and the US. Was there a thought process of like, now your Korea chapter was over, or were you thinking maybe even after I graduate from college I would go back to Korea? Like, did your feelings toward growing up in Korea and then being out of the ecosystem, what was your thought process like as it relates to that?
Right. So like most of my Korean friends now are from university. I think the real like bonding is getting created from like high school, like not like so early days. As I went to high school in Canada, I didn't really have that many connections in Korea. So I never really felt like I'm in the Korean ecosystem already. So when I had to, go for university, I think that was not like sort of a question that I never thought that I'm in the Korean ecosystem yet anyways. So, I mean, I spent 4 years there and it's not that long yet. So why don't I just pursue more in this country to finish the education, and then I can make a decision later in terms of what to do and what I want to do after.
I see. That makes sense. And you had said that maybe it was in your first year when you got to University of Toronto, like in terms of associating with the Korean organizations, you were a little bit hesitant, or you weren't sure if you really wanted to fit into that ecosystem. Did you have, when you were at University of Toronto, both like Korean friends from that organization and like Canadian friends as well? Or was your primary social group from that Korean ecosystem?
So you're talking about like that like community, right? Like, do you want me to like compare one to like other associations?
Just in terms of the natural social group that emerged around you, like your friends, you said a lot of them came from that community over time,
That's
right?
correct. Mm-hmm.
Did you also, participate in any Canadian organizations at the University of Toronto as well?
Right, I did a lot actually. So I was part of Korean Commerce Committee for many years, but also I served in like University of Toronto Business Association and Sports and Business Association, and also like the healthcare orientated. Those are all like Canadian like U of T communities, unlike a Korean community. But I think the reason why like most of my friends are from the Korean Association is, it's true that I spend more time with them, but also the Korean Commerce Community, not only our club, but the entire Korean Association at U of T, just work a lot. Like we meet a lot, not like for social aspect, but we do a lot of meetings. We do host a lot of great academic events like tutorial, like coffee chat, alumni connection events, professional events, all those things. And then, other associations sort of take a break during summer vacation. I mean, although we do like a high level of discussions, but in Korea, we are very competitive, doing a lot of stuff, even during the summer. We even rent a space here in Korea for the incoming first year students for our school. And then we do like host events. We also do like host like a timetable session, helping them, all those things. Like we also go to like MT, like for the social aspect. So I just have to meet them a lot, like even during summer, during exam seasons, vacation. So I think that just gave me more, close sense to them compared to my involvement in other associations. Also, there was like a COVID in the middle. So those events were sort of a lot of canceled, like due to that aspect. So I think that I was just in a spot that, it just what happened.
And that Korean Commerce Committee, that organization, that was like a U of T chapter, and there are equivalents like that across other Canadian and even U.S. Universities as well? Or how does that system work?
Right. So I think it really depends on your school. So I think U of T is very unique, that I guarantee that there are like the most like many Korean associations in our school and dedicated executives, because just within our school there are at least like 6 or 7 Korean associations, and was a member of at least like 20 to 40. So it's quite crazy. And they're not all new. Like our association was founded in 2007. And then there are like two more associations that were founded way before than we did. So we do have a long history and, a lot of, events and, do a lot of stuff. I think there are at least one Korean community in top like 100 universities in both Canada and US, because when I was even promoting like my event for abroad, I reached out to at least like 60-70 universities in a Korean association for sort of invitation. So I think there's at least one or two, but not every universities have like 6 or 7 communities like we do.
Yeah. And when you were doing that type of outreach to other Korean associations at other universities, was it all like Koreans for the most part, or was it also like Korean Americans or people of other Korean heritage as well?
Well, some association is really hard to tell, like whether they are like Korean or Korean Canadian.
Yeah.
And especially like, usually the leadership changes every year. So it actually get influenced by a lot, like who the leader is. So although the foundation is like Korean, if the majority of leaders are like Korean Canadian, then they can probably shift towards more to those activities. So it sort of like changes every year. So it's sort of like hard to tell just by looking at the Instagram page whether there are more like Korean or not. Yeah.
But I guess, were you primarily targeting the Koreans because you guys would speak in Korean and a lot of the events that you would host would be in Korean as well?
At the moment, yes, that was true. But I didn't really filter through because even in that association, there are many different people, and we just didn't want to filter in advance to diminish the chances of reaching out to those people.
Yeah, because it's interesting because even as I build out Cambridge, like there are two different approaches that I could take, right? Which is one is I try and define a very specific niche audience of like who this Korean community is for, and just serve those individuals. Or it can almost be like a network of networks, right? Where it's like, okay, Jamie is a community leader in University of Toronto, right? And he knows all the people there and is well connected there and is hosting events. And then I know like this person I met the other day, Isabel Spizik. She just founded a Korean American or Korean Australian young professionals organization, right? And so any Korean Australian types of people that come through the ecosystem, I would point them to her. So it's almost like a network of networks, right? It's like a more global bridge.
Yeah, that's true.
And one of the interesting things is, and maybe you were doing this to some extent, is there are all these Korean American, Korean student associations, Korean Canadian associations at all these universities. And it doesn't feel like, at least to me, that they are that connected with one another. It feels quite fragmented. And maybe there's a reason, or there's just not interest in that, or maybe there's just no initiative or infrastructure in place for those people to get connected. I'm curious what your experience had been.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to answer because obviously I don't know the entire pictures.
Right.
But I did have experience sort of working across different communities, and even try to sort of create a platform to at least do part of it. But I think the biggest challenge is that, first of all, the leaders and the group of people change every year.
Yep.
And they all have different, the periods. Like our community ends on April, and we rehire that. But then like there are some associations do this in December and stuff like that. So it was sort of hard to match the timeline. Second, they also have different busy schedules. Like we can't really do a collaborative event during like final exam season. So I think it was really hard to come up with like the best timing to do something together. I think third is that, so what should we do together? So as we have like no experience like doing like those sort of collaborative events in the past, there are not much leaders who can think of this and really take a drive to reach out to a lot of people and okay, let's do this. And they sort of have like all like conflicts of interest, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think that was sort of like challenging, but we did have experience like collaborating with like other associations, like Korean association within the same university, or we even try to collaborate with like a in-person networking event from like university like next to us
Yeah.
for like business like alumni events or stuff like that. But so we do have some experiences, and I think that those are some happening in a regional level, but yeah, not in the entire like geographic region. So
Yeah. And it makes me curious because it's difficult if it's one or two organizations and it's like an in-person event and syncing up everybody's schedules and everybody's priorities. But if you do go to a global scale, maybe the level of connection is a little bit weaker, but you can start to just find people that are more passionate, because there are some, I imagine there's some difference in leadership and how they approach their own organization, where it's like some people are really passionate about starting events, building connections, all of that stuff, whereas other people are maybe more so just taking the mantle just because nobody else was willing to do it. And so they're just kind of a leader for a temporary period, but they have other priorities and other aspirations.
Right.
And it's hard to sync it up when it's tight geography and there's not a ton of people. But it seems like from a digital ecosystem perspective, right, even if there were, let's say, 20 to 25 people who were really passionate about building an ecosystem across the world, if it was a smaller ecosystem, it would be hard to sync everybody up because those 20, 25 people are all over the world. But in a digital platform, which is what I'm hoping to build with Cambridge, there are maybe new possibilities that could be unlocked.
Right. I think there are still a lot of people who doesn't know the power of the unexpected connections. You know, when because we're all busy, so we try to come up with like a valid reason for not doing this.
Yeah.
So when there's an opportunity like this, oftentimes I saw a lot of people sort of afraid of doing this because I'm busy or whatsoever.
Yep.
But, you know, that's not an excuse actually, because if you know how valuable this can be, no matter what, or no matter what the schedule is, you still are able to pay the time and effort to be part of this association. So I think there's a lot of like Korean associations and, you know, Korean living overseas who are a little afraid to, you know, take themselves into this ride. So if we sort of somehow lower this barrier, show them how valuable it can be, I think that can be so much easier in terms of, you know, making connections. There are some, you know, Korean association here in Korea for the people who have experience like studying abroad, but those are usually happen to, you know, sort of trying to provide resources, helping them with like a career aspirations and finding a job in Korea. But I think we should be able to do more than that, because, you know, job, you know, work, professional is not the entire goal of our lives. And I hope that there can be a place where we can all connect to each other with a you know, background of Korean identity.
When you say the power of unexpected connections, like, is that something that you had only learned like throughout your University of Toronto experience, or even when you were a freshman or sophomore at University of Toronto, did you realize the power of unexpected connection? Because that's a good phrase for it. And I feel like a lot of people don't. I think the reason why it's interesting to me is because I hadn't really cared about like community building per se for most of my life. It was just through recording podcasts with people that I found interesting, that a natural community started to emerge. And I began to see firsthand, like, oh, I listened to this guy's podcast with you, and I reached out to him, and that was a really powerful thing, right? So I'm curious in terms of how you learned about that, when it became more obvious of how powerful that was.
I think it was after finishing my military service and probably even second year of university. So that's when I first started to look for these internships. And during a lot of interviews, there was like one interviewee who mentioned about like power balance. So it was quite unique that he first handed out his like name card, and then he showed around his office before we actually get to the interview. And usually in Korea, or even, you know, outside Korea, the first question of interview is like, just tell me about yourself. But that's not how we started. We just did, a lot of conversation. He just told me like who he is and what kind of task he's working on, and just politely asking some questions, but I never felt it like an interview process. So although I did have other like choices I wanted to go, I just wanted to sort of, I want to work with this person. Like I like this concept. Like I like that he mentioned like a power balance. And I went to the second round. By the way, that first interview for the internship took me like 90 minutes. We just talked a lot. So it was crazy. I enjoyed the conversation 100%. But for the next round of interview, back then I didn't realize, but after the interview I was tested COVID, so I was really in a bad condition. Like I was in a subway, but I even went out like before I actually got there because I was so sick of it.
Jeez.
So that interview, I don't remember like what I spoke. So obviously I didn't get in. So it was very unlucky. But the thing is, he's still my mentor. We actually catch up like every quarters. Whenever I come to Korea, I visit him. So we still share a lot of insights. And during the time when I was hoping to get to this company, when I was researching about him, I was able to find some of his connections and relatives. And by that, their blog posting or LinkedIn, I just like was able to open my eyes to more, areas that might be interested to myself. So those little connections, like even they don't know who I am, just by able to know him and his people around him, I was sort of able to get to the next step. Like for example, like one of his best friends from university I know was part of the entrepreneurship club, and then he did write a lot of blog posting, and his job was like a product manager. And I read all the contents and I felt like, his past is just like similar to who I am now. So I just want to get to know him, and then maybe product manager is a thing. So that's actually how I was able to connect to him. Like I just like cold mailed him, and then we were able to catch up, and I was like, what you have done is cool, and I would just want to know more about how the product manager works. And he told me, okay, just try build something. And that's exactly what I did. And also like he was like part of the entrepreneurship club. He was like a president there, like back in university. And that's how I first realized, this ecosystem exists in Korea. And one day I want to be part of this. And I happened to take a gap year, and that's exactly what I did. I joined entrepreneurship club in the first semester, and I served as a president in the second semester. So those options I couldn't even imagine if I didn't know him. And the reason why I know him is by just going to that interview and just try to research more about him. So it's just one small example, but I think from there are many more. So now I know for a fact, based on my experience, that every experience and every people you meet can count. You don't have to hope for like certain outcome that comes right after it. That usually comes like later. But if you always like open for possibilities and open to really enjoy the conversation, and then highly value the people you meet and their time, it's going to come to you for good opportunities anyways. So I think it's going to take a lot of time, to be honest, at least for me, because I just didn't really know that in my young ages.
Well, it's incredible in terms of relationships and building them over time, like what technology unlocks. Because even for me, like about 2.5 years ago is when I started doing the podcast, and also when I started summarizing on a monthly basis just my own personal learnings and projects. And that had been like really a powerful tool, because what I realized was I meet somebody, I have a great conversation with them. Usually after that conversation, kind of the relationship either ends unless there's a reason for somebody to reach out, right? But by sending a monthly newsletter, that person can kind of follow along with my own learning journey, even if like geographically we're not in the same location. And that is what kind of opened my eyes to even social media and the power of like unexpected connections there, because I might have had a conversation with somebody like like 2 or 3 years ago, and I included them on my monthly updates. And for one reason or another, they decided to reach out because something in that kind of sparked their curiosity, or I was reading a book that they were interested in, right? Like you open up the possibility set of what's possible. And I think the podcast is a great example of it as well. So it seems like there's just like so much opportunity for that type of unexpected connection. But the other thing is there's a unique and special opportunity, I think, for both the digital ecosystem, but also the in-person dynamic as well. And I'm curious in terms of the project abroad, kind of initiating that, like early on, what the motivator was of you identified some sort of need and decided to take action, right? It's like if I were to meet a bunch of other people of your type of background and profile, not a lot of them would have decided, hey, I'm going to try and start my own like in-person conference. So could you talk a little bit about how that like came to be?
So I think my biggest motivation was that I wanted to build something, whether that is a product or conference, from ground zero to one. So although I did have many experience leading organization and leading, a lot of large scale events, creating projects and, doing a lot of great things, like even fundraising. But when I really tried to start my own project from, ground zero, I found it really challenging at 13 level. Like I'm able to get to this much, but like it's very hard to make a result, like an outcome from there. So I look back into my past experiences and I realized that the success that I made in those, associations was not just from my effort, because for example, like Korean Commons Community was founded in 2007. So we do already have a lot of alumni connections, some sort of money to, create something. And then, a lot of people who are willing to, participate in this association, maybe like 600 Instagram followers and YouTube channel, stuff like that. So as soon as I get the role, I know what to do. I know the areas to improve on. So those success was not just built by myself and my team. It was all sort of like continuously accumulated from the past. So I realized, okay, now I have to do something from ground zero and somehow, make the result and outcome. That was like my number one goal. If I do this, I might do better in my own project. And within just 6 weeks of time frame, all I could think of is create the event. And then what event? So that really goes back to my previous answers, like what kind of event I want to conduct. And really this 6 weeks time frame like started from reaching out to my creating my team members, and with the team members we just sort of narrowed down to concept, like strategy, within just like few days. And then we reach out to a lot of like potential speakers, like cold mail them a lot even before we actually have some sort of attendees. Like for example, if you do have like association, then you sort of know there are some sort of amount of people will just come to the events. There's like a guaranteed like estimations,
right?
But we don't have anything. We don't have Instagram page. We just have nothing. But still we had our vision of connecting at least 60 to 80 students studying abroad who have like who are sort of having tough times for dedication to explore more aspire more career journeys after graduations. And then I know for a fact that everyone who excel in their jobs, I think it's very difficult for them to get to there by themselves. We all need help, and I think they are willing to provide the same help if we are really sincere and true belief of this value. So I was really fortunate to reach out to 5 great speakers, all from different aspects. And then using this, I was able to promote the event, doing a lot of dynamic marketing things. And then I was also able to, find a free open space, able to secure, a few partnerships also. So I think it was amazing. Yeah.
Did you say it was great. You had 6 weeks from the start to when you were, because that's like a month and a half, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And then we were all like a full-time like employee at the same time during summer.
Wow.
It was crazy.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And was that this past year that you guys
No, this
hosted?
summer. Yeah, just
It
a
was
few
this
months
summer.
ago. Mhm.
Wow. And given that you held a successful event, I guess in terms of what your hopes and aspirations were for it and how it turned out and what the feedback was from the attendees, in terms of the scale, can you say again how many different countries, how many different people
It
were
was like
present?
7 countries,
Uh-huh.
37 universities,
Wow.
over 100 attendees in
And-
person. Yeah.
And when you said you had tried some like dynamic marketing tactics,
Uh-huh.
in terms of what you found most effective, were there like a handful of things where people found out about it through social media, or what was your approach there?
Well, we did try a lot of different things like LinkedIn or even paid marketing through Instagram.
Okay.
But I think the core tactic that really worked out well is a referral marketing. So for the first like 5 days, there was only like 10 signups. And I was in dilemma whether we should really start saying sorry to guaranteed like speakers. Like, okay, I don't think we can host the event because I told them we're going to bring 60 to 80. And then there were only like 2 weeks left, or maybe even less than 2 weeks, to sort of, secure a certain amount of attendees to actually, create the event. So I was so scared of it. And then I realized, so when we market, we really have to know the product well, right? So I started thinking about what is the product we're selling. Is it the insights from, speakers, which is great. But I think the core product is that we are here to connect a lot of different people from all around the world. I think there was no such opportunity like this in the past, at least that much,
Yep.
from similar age groups
Yep.
who are still students. So what I did was to create like a simple website using Notion. So what I did is, as soon as someone signs up, I had his or her like university in the attendee list. So there was a section like, okay, attendees, like confirmed attendees are from these universities, and then we just start writing down as soon as people sign up. So in the first like 20 people, I was able to narrow it down to like 10 to 15 universities, and then as soon as he or she signs up, I sent a link saying that, oh, you're confirmed, and then share this link to your friend who are qualified or who you want to bring with, because they're all sort of shy. Like it's like I don't know anyone, and I know for a fact that they all want to come with at least one person. So like less than like 2 minutes, when I see the sign up, I just like edit their phone number, like do a Kakao talk, like, okay, you're confirmed, share this link, and then you're good to go. And then when they click the link, they know that, okay, people are from these universities, and then there are speaker lineups like from like Meta, like Kim and Jang Law Firm, like Kakao Entertainment, GQ, Google. So it's very cool. Like, okay, lineup is great, and then people are from these universities. I don't think they made a bad choice, so why don't I give a try? So although it was only like 10 people in the first 5 days, I think next 5 to 10 days, over 70 people signed up. That really, once we hit like 30 to 40, it just added repeatedly after that. So I think the core strength was really the referral marketing.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's helpful for me too with building out Cambridge and how to think about it, because once I find one high signal person, then it's like, bring your friends along, right? Because more than likely they have the same kind of values or interests. And that was the same situation with how we met, right? It's like I met Hannah in terms of like her values and how she thought about collaboration and all that stuff, like very positive sum mindset. And then she introduced me to you, and you're another person, kind of same perspective, which is quite powerful. And in terms of the event structure, so it was a full day event?
Yeah, I think it was like 5 hours, but also there was like a people saying that, okay, is this just conference like 5 hours, or is there like a networking event after that?
Right.
So this was not planned, but we actually got the demand from like attendees, and then we were able to search a spot with like a great price, and then at the end the event was like from like 1 p.m. all the way to like 9 p.m., including this networking part.
Mm-hmm. And what was the thought process afterwards? So it was like you set up this incredible event, right? There obviously there's maybe an opportunity to do it again next year or something of the sort, and then it's like you have an established attendee list, and I'm sure there's a lot of experimentation or other types of events or other types of ecosystems that you could build. I guess what are your overall reflections, and what were some of the ideas that came about afterwards?
Right. I think it fluctuate a lot. Like it's just been like couple months after we finished the event, but I think we had like over 10 different ideas, and even like my thought process was very complicated. So just right after we finished the event, we were very surprised and excited about the success, and also the attendees were asking for more events like this that we were happy about. But we are planning to go back to Toronto because we are all going to like a fourth year. We do have to study. So unfortunately, we are not able to do in-person event like this, at least for a year. So my thought process was that we were able to get like 100 people in person in summer. So maybe we should do in a larger scale in online setting, like a webinar, to have like maybe at least 200, 300 people. And then we did have like a list of like speakers who were not able to come to this event, but very qualified and willing to provide a lot of, great insights. But like 2 weeks later, we actually worked really hard, and there was like a month left until the school starts. So I gave my team members all the time to sort of like take a break and think about what you want to do in the next semester with this abroad project, because it is very great to make this project get going and make it better. But also I do have like love with the people that I work with, that I really wanted to provide them the time that they can really experience, learn, grow, something that they couldn't do before. I didn't want to make them spend effort and time in their last year of university to just operate or do the same thing that they have done in the past.
Sure.
So I gave them opportunity and time to think about it. And I was able to collect, like I actually did meet in person or online like 3 weeks later. And then it got more complicated. Because it was a great success, and then it was like when singer had like a really greatest hit song, it's hard to come back, right? So I think we did have like those moments, and coming back to university, we sort of wanted to pivot to creating a product, because we did, as a team of 5, we already did so many events in the past, like starting from like Korean commerce community. So we were sort of sick of it. And then I think like having like a webinar doesn't give the same amount of insights and values to the people, at least most of them, compared to like in person. Just by looking at myself, like if it's just like stuff that I can just turn on my laptop, watch from my bedroom, there's like a lack of concentration, I guess. So I didn't want to waste the next opportunity to bring the similar events. So that actually got me really complicated. So that's how we decided to move to creating a product. But I still do have belief in, doing something fun as this team to host like an event on a seasonal basis, or collaborate with other parties to bring the values we hope to. Because I think there are a lot that we can leverage as current students and young people who have these values to sort of connect a lot of different people with similar background like us.
And in terms of the reflections after the event, in terms of the feedback that you had gotten from the attendees, and also your own personal experience and the experience of the other team members that helped you kind of make this event possible, what did you find like the most valuable of the events? Was it different based on the attendee, or was it like insights that these existing employees that had landed great jobs at great companies, the insights that they shared during the talks? Was it primarily the networking opportunities? Like in terms of what people appreciated most or what was most valuable, was there something specific, or did it just vary based on the attendee?
I think I can tell from a different aspect as a like attendee like myself and people like organizing it. So in the first part, like as an organizer, I was like happy to bring this event successfully, and there are many other things that we tried for the first time, like securing a sponsorship, having this concept of event in person, doing a lot of different marketing, sending a lot of cold mails. So that was a great learning opportunity for us. From an attendee perspective, I think it's not just one thing. I think it's like a mixture of getting insights from speakers like that, because it's very hard to invite people like them. At the same time, they were able to connect the people like studying and living across the border, sharing the similar challenges, minds that they're willing to sort of share. But I think what really matters is that if we just give like a 2 week of time frame for two person, okay, just feel free to connect to each other within this 2 weeks. I think it won't be that like powerful. Like, I realized that there is like a group of great people in a great setting in person, great music. There's just a vibe creation that you're open to talk more about your stories. So I think that the chemistry really worked out well in the vibe that day. So I think that really provided me sort of the realization. I'm not saying this is right, but that day I sort of realized online platform is great, but really to get to know people well, we do need to create those in-person connections and vibe. That's what I realized.
And I mean, part of why I think so with Cambridge, and as I bring members into a more private ecosystem, right? There is a danger that I'm very aware of if I just put people into a group chat with very little context as to who people are, it's difficult to build like a community, so to speak, right? But even with these conversations, it's like you and I, we've had an hour-long chat, and having this on like your digital profile, so to speak, so that other people can have a sense for who you really are. My hope is that will open it itself up to more unexpected connection, right? Where somebody comes into the community and they're not really sure who to interact with or what the backgrounds are and experiences are of other people. But if they see you engaging in like, let's say a Slack channel or some sort of digital ecosystem, that this is kind of a replication of like a in-person dynamic as well. It's not a perfect replication, and I think there still needs to be a real in-person. Like the fact that we're recording this in person is a much better experience than if we were recording over Zoom, even though Zoom works fine. And so I think that's an insight for myself as well, right? Is there is a human connection, and one of the things is I had been active on Twitter over the past couple of years, and if I start to have interactions with somebody, just like commenting on their posts and they're commenting on my posts, it's a good starting point. But what happens is usually if that goes on for a few months, I'll reach out to them and say, hey, are you open to a chat, just like a virtual Zoom, because the stuff that you were posting was interesting. And then after you have even a virtual conversation, in terms of how you engage with their content online, it completely changes the dynamic, right? And I think it becomes a lot easier to get a sense for a real community. So there's a lot of fun, experimentation stuff that I think can be done. In terms of right now where you're at in life, so you're going back to University of Toronto to finish your school year.
That's right.
And then do you have your plan situated already?
Like not at all, to be honest. Like I think I'm probably going back to where I am working like right now, because I love to be part of the organization, and there are a lot of learning opportunities. But still, like looking back at the past, like there's no guarantee like future, or even if I want to go this past, like it always happens, and you never know what's gonna happen. So I'm not trying to restrict to myself, like okay, I have to do this, or this is my goal. Otherwise, I'm going to fail, as I did in the past back in like 2013 and 14 when I made a transition to studying abroad. So I really don't have any specific goals, to be honest, or plans, but I think it's not a bad thing at all. I really want to see how it goes and flows. Try not to get too stressed about it.
Amazing. Well, in the same kind of I guess, thesis of unexpected connection. It's just like unexpected opportunities in general, right? Is your life has taken many turns already, and I'm sure in the future many more turns will come. I'm excited to kind of graft you into the Cambridge community and continue to share, given your background and experience. When it comes to like certain types of people that you're most interested in connecting with, are there specific like profiles or industries or backgrounds, anything like that? Because as I bring people into this community, I think one thing that will make this more of a community feel is to be able to point them to like one or two people just from the get-go to make them, feel part of it. I'm curious if there's like any specific types of people that you're most interested in connecting with these days.
I actually thought about that question yesterday, just on my own. Like, who do I want to be connected? And I think it really changed every years or quarters based on my interest and my goal, because that's how we usually do the coffee chats.
Yep.
But I think for now, like thinking about my entire life, I think I want to get connected to creators. So I think we talked a little bit about this off the record before we shoot the podcast, that you want to do better in like a filming or editing. And it's not just about the video contents. I think, back in 10 years ago in Korea, I think if you do like YouTube channel, everybody was like sort of surprised. But nowadays, like no one really thinks you are special or unique because there are just so many people doing it. So I think in the next 10 years, it's not going to be a surprise that you come up with your own project, create your own stuff, whether that's a YouTube channel, like marketplace or anything like that. Because, there are a lot of people already like sort of, they have like a full-time job, but they also like work part-time or trying to build something off on the ground.
Yep.
So I myself want to put myself into a position, no matter what I pursue in my career, I do want to be a creator, whether that is a project, community, or event. So I think that that's sort of people I want to make, lifetime relationship with.
Amazing. There's already one or two creator types of people also that are quite good at the filmmaking that I'll point you to. But as new people come into the fold, I'll make sure to get you plugged in. Really appreciate you sharing a bit about your background. I'm really glad we were able to do this in person. I think it's a much better experience than having done it over Zoom. And I look forward to bringing you along for the journey. So thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thanks for the invitation. It was also a nice experience for me as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Jamie.